Hi, PerspectaWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday, March 2nd, a blustery morning here in the Mid-Atlantic region. We had a passage of an Arctic frontal system early last night that led to some very strong winds in the overnight hours throughout the northeast U.S. Mid-Atlantic region, gusting up to 45, 50 miles per hour or so, and temperatures dropped sharply in the overnight hours to the lower 20s in some of the suburbs along the I-95 corridor region. It remains blustery and cold today, but the winds will die down tonight as high pressure builds in, and it looks like this high pressure system will dominate the weather scene across the Mid-Atlantic, the northeast U.S. for the remainder of the week. Temperatures will moderate. There are two systems that will pull out of the central U.S. into the southeastern states, but both of those look like they'll stay far to the south and east of the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor, causing some rain down across the Carolinas and other parts of the southeastern portion of the nation. Let's kind of take a broader look ahead over the next couple of weeks. We're looking at the zero-Z run of the ensemble version of the GFS in terms of the 850 millibar temperature averages, the anomaly averages over 5-day periods going right through the middle part of the month of March. And it gets kind of interesting towards the latter stages here, the middle of the month of March, perhaps signaling that there may be some colder air for the second half of the month of March coming into the eastern part of the nation, but a warm-up for next week. Well, first of all, let's start off the current 5-day period below normal temperatures on average at 850 millibars as far as the ensemble run of the GFS is concerned. But let's just move ahead. 5-day averages. Again, this is a rolling 5-day period. Days 1 to 5, now days 2 to 6. And watch what happens here. First of all, going into next week, it looks like could be a pretty good warm-up for much of the eastern half of the nation. This time of the year, that could mean high temperatures well up in the 60s, maybe 70 degrees will be on the table in portions of the I-95 corridor region. And then when we get later into the month, this is now days 11 to 15 as cited up here, March 12th to March 17th, right around the middle of the month, still hanging on to above normal temperatures along the eastern part of the nation, but kind of surrounded now by this time with colder than normal conditions throughout the western U.S., up across northern Canada, even out over the northern Atlantic. And then we go all the way out to the last time period, days 12 to 16, the middle of the month, March 13th to March 18th. Still hanging on to kind of a southeastern ridge look here, but a lot of cold air still sitting around the northern part of Canada, the western part of Canada, the western U.S., and even out over the North Atlantic. So that probably is providing us with a signal that it can turn colder again in the eastern U.S., but that may wait until we have quite a warm week next week, the second week in the month of March. Well, when we take a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly pattern, also here from the ensemble run of the GFS at 0Z for North America, rolling 5-day averages, kind of a similar pattern here in the sense that we'll see a big difference in the eastern U.S. by the end of this time period and surrounding areas across Canada, the western U.S., and the North Atlantic. Here we are with a ridge starting to pop over the middle part of the nation, and that expands into the east by next week. And here we go by next week. This is days 6 to 10, March 7th to March 12th, the bulk of next week, ridging across the eastern half of the nation. That correlated with above normal temperatures across the eastern half of the nation. Then we go forward to the end of this time period, all the way out to days 12 to 16, the middle of the month, March 13th to March 18th. Again, kind of a sign here of a southeastern ridge, but surrounded by below normal temperatures and below normal heights extending from northern Canada to western Canada, the western U.S., and even the North Atlantic. Almost looks like this has little chance of holding on here as it's surrounded by below normal temperatures and below normal heights. So we'll see maybe a warm stretch for the eastern half of the nation next week, perhaps turning somewhat colder again during the second half of the month of March. Well, let's take a look now at the short term here in the northeast U.S., mid-Atlantic region. Still some strong winds following the passage of last night's Arctic frontal system, gusting up to 25, maybe all the way up to 40 miles per hour or so, especially in New York City north and east. Those winds, however, will die down pretty rapidly this afternoon, especially tonight, as this high pressure system expands into the mid-Atlantic region. Here we are. By this evening, high pressure shifts all the way from the Tennessee Valley to the Outer Banks, and the winds will die down across the northeast U.S. Way below normal temperatures for today. However, that will change on Wednesday. Here we are, Wednesday afternoon forecast map. A certain modification in temperatures by tomorrow afternoon. 50 plus degrees for afternoon highs on Wednesday in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. Much of that same area will hold in the 30s today to go along with that stiff northwest wind. And here's that first system. Certainly stays to the south and east of the mid-Atlantic region, causing some rain all the way down into the Carolinas. And then we'll see later in the week, cold air mass kind of filters on down from the north to the south, and it will actually turn colder beyond Wednesday in the mid-Atlantic region. Thursday, colder than Wednesday. Friday, even colder than Thursday, as this cold high pressure system really just drops from the north to the south, and that dry air kind of dominates the scene here as well. We do have another system that dives all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico over the upcoming weekend. This is the Saturday morning forecast map. Still cold and dry up across the Great Lakes, New England, the Mid-Atlantic region. This system has to be watched over the next couple of days, but still looks like it stays to the south and east of the Mid-Atlantic region, with cold high pressure dominating the scene right into the upcoming weekend. This is the forecast map for next Sunday. Still several days away, still has to be watched. Wouldn't take that much of a shift to the north and west to potentially cause some problems in the Mid-Atlantic region. Now, once that goes by, we saw this on those ensemble runs, pretty much off to the races in temperatures here. This is almost a week away, next Monday. That high pressure, once that moves to the north and east, maybe off the east coast, look at this broad flow of air out of the southwest, out of the deep south, all the way into the Great Lakes region. That will certainly cause a big warm-up in this part of the nation that eventually next week works its way into the eastern U.S. A real big warm-up next week out across this part of the nation, the Central Plains, the Great Lakes, the Midwest. A little bit less so in the Mid-Atlantic region, but nonetheless it looks warmer certainly next week than it will be for the remainder of this week. So again, the Arctic frontal system last night will have some residual effects today, with pretty stiff northwest winds and way below normal temperatures. Moderation, however, comes on Wednesday, but then we slide back down again in terms of temperatures for the second half of the week, specifically Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in the Mid-Atlantic region and the Northeast U.S. That's it for now. For PerspectaWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.